Hello, is this Robert Rydell?
Hey, yeah, Nick Jordan, how's it going, man?
Oh shit, what's happening, dude? Alex Jews,
Oh, man.
aka Robert Rydell, aka I don't know any of your other aliases. All right, but you're a man of many names.
Well, they keep kicking me off YouTube, man, so I have to jump around.
He's too hot to handle for YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it yourself.
Yeah, Nick, I just thought maybe you had some questions, man. I want to try to answer them for you and see if I can explain some things.
Okay, so what would you categorize yourself politically as?
Well, initially, just like everybody else, I was a capitalist and just a good American boy and believed in all that. Went to school, studied business, and really discovered what business, the corporations, and money really are. And it led me down the path to discover the true form of our government, which is one that is of money. So money is what controls us, and the value of the individual, the human being, has been degraded to the point where we're killing our babies and we're doing all the things we're doing. And I just think that we need to reverse that somewhat and go back towards one where we value life over money.
Okay, so my confusion lies in why are you blaming this on money when there is no gun to your head to use a currency. It's a choice, and it is a limited choice because of the government has approved and put a stamp on the Federal Reserve note, and that's the money you have to use. But in an absence of the government, there are all these currencies that you could use voluntarily in order to exchange value more efficiently with people for their products and services. So I don't look at money as some fundamental corruption. I think it has been corrupted by people in power, but only when you let individuals amass the kind of power that they have in the government will the monetary system be corrupted to the level it has been. What would you say to that?
No, I would say that you're right most of the time, Nick, and so that's why it's great talking to you. Is that you make good points. I would just say that when this government was formed initially, the individual was free, meaning that no taxation was applied to the individual human man, meaning that you could go out and earn, and then all those earnings were yours. Then in 1871, after the Civil War, that's really what the Civil War was about. They brought back in the corporation model. The United States became a corporation. And once we became a corporation, then the livestock that was held under the corporation, the stock, meaning you,
Yeah.
you were issued a birth certificate. And once they have your birth certificate, then you're now held as an instrument on the stock exchange, meaning that they can take out a loan against the value of your life.
Yeah.
And so when you're born, the government takes out a loan in your name. They issue that much debt into the system. I think it's around $14 million per individual right now. And that is essentially a type of slavery where you're not held out in the barn somewhere and whipped, but you're allowed to go out and earn money as long as you pay a large portion of it back to the government. And that's really where we became slaves again, is that 1871 when we became a corporation. The human man was no longer free. You were now a tax cattle, like you like to say. And that's really the condition we're under. We're under a free range slavery where we're allowed to go out and produce in these ways as long as we pay income tax, property tax, sales tax. We register our vehicle. We end up paying like 70% of our income to taxes.
Yeah.
And it's just it's gone to the point where we're slaves, Nick. We really are. It's just our chains are not physical. They're monetary. They're debt and they're taxes and they're everything. You know about all that. So.
And I do want to address the bass in your voice when you call me a tax cattle. All right, it seems like you might be the type of individual that could run a slaughterhouse. All right, and it spent it sent chills down my spine there, and you're spot on the money though. With the where the legitimate innovation that came out of the Industrial Revolution was co-opted by the creation of the corporation. The Rockefellers and the Carnegies that had created these, massive fortunes based on their massive value contributed to the economy and massive, innovations and inventions that resulted. That's when the deal with the devil was signed, and these individuals decided that instead of keeping up their level of innovation, instead of keeping up their level of value provided back to the economy, it's much easier to just shake hands with your criminal friends in government and get regulations passed and get regulators to go and snoop on the small business competitors and see what they aren't complying with on the new, they've got to get a new license now. And, it's all the way down to you got to get a goddamn fishing license. And like I was, when I went back to Oklahoma, me and my dad were talking about it. Like we were just going to go out on the kayaks and fish for a little bit, and we were debating back and forth like whether or not I should get a fishing license. We had to stop off and get a fishing license before we went out on my goddamn pond in my hometown and threw a goddamn lure in the lake. And so if you let it grow, it's going to get down to that pedantic level where it's like we want to get in there and neurotically manipulate you and get you to comply to where you just throw your hands up in the air and say, fuck it.
Yeah, bro, you're right about that, man. You shouldn't have to get a license to go fish, but yeah, it's pretty bad. They have to keep people off the water somehow. I think that's how they do it. Nick, I wanted to talk about something else. I know you said you're an atheist.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, and this kind of goes in different directions, but it really has to do with the shape of the earth. Okay.
Okay. So, hold that thought real quick. Alan James says Nick should have to get a license for his haircut. Can't we all agree on that? My hair is not looking the best tonight. It's very weird, and it's fine, dude. It's a work in progress. Okay, keep going. Flat Earth and atheism.
Okay, so you drive all over Los Angeles. You know it pretty well, I'm assuming, at this point. There's a place called Santa Monica Beach, okay?
Yeah.
And at Santa Monica Beach, you can look out into the ocean, and there's an island called Santa Barbara Island. The island is approximately 50 miles from Santa Monica Beach.
Okay.
And on the right day, in the right conditions, and you can use optics if you want to, but you can actually see it with your naked eye. You can see Santa Barbara Island 50 miles away out in the ocean. The problem with that is that if Earth be a sphere that's 25,000 miles in circumference, and the mathematics, NASA puts all that out so you can go get that mathematics, you should not be able to see that island from that distance, but you can. And so, at the very least, the Earth is not the size that they say it is. It's either bigger or, in my opinion, it's actually flat, and they're lying about all of it. What do you think about that?
So I don't know what calculations you're referring to that, or how that would be applied to the empirical reality of being able to see the island or not. I don't know the null hypothesis for that theory, if you know what I'm saying. But also the main point when it comes to this, what would be the utility of a mass media coordinated, like public school coordinated, scientist coordinated mass lie to tell you that the earth is round when it's in fact flat? What would be the value of that kind of cooperation, that kind of propaganda campaign, that kind of diabolical scheme that someone would come up with? What would be the value to convince you that the earth is round when it's actually flat?
Okay, so great question, Nick. We're back to slavery. Okay, it's all about slavery. So in school, they have to control your consciousness. So they teach you certain things. They teach you that you come from a monkey, that the earth is a spinning ball in a random place. Basically, what they're telling you is that you're an accident and that there is no God. Okay, that you're in a random place, you come from a monkey, this is all an accident, and that there is no God. So the entire slave matrix, the entire system is to convince you that there is no God, because if you realized that there was, you would then serve God and you would not serve them.
But let me butt in real quick. There's more evidence that we came from a common ancestor of apes than there is for the existence of God. And also, God is very subjective in the principles therein when it comes to different religions. So just because they teach you that there's an existence of that God exists, like if they were to teach you that, well, what principles does that come down to? How does that practically change your life? It's kind of like the argument that we're living in a simulation and this has happened before, and like, well, what is the difference in your life? Why would you make that metaphysical leap to believe that there's some deity out there controlling everything, but you cannot detect him with any instruments? You cannot pray and have things be manifest like at your whim. You cannot, the miracles are not observable, they're not recordable, they're not repeatable in experiments. What would be the difference in your empirical reality if a God exists or if he doesn't?
Well, for me, I do believe in God, but for what really matters is what people believe, what the public, what everyone believes. You know, my family, your family, everybody. That's what really matters, is what everyone believes, because that's kind of our zeitgeist, right? That's how we function as a society. But what would happen if people were to realize the truth, in my opinion, I think that they would, empirically, how would things change? Well, if you realize that they were lying to us, and you realize that you were created by God and all these things, you would literally stop paying your taxes. You would literally take your kids out of school. You would stop doing all the things that the system has set us up to do, as far as earning wages for a corporation just to pay taxes to the government. You know, the whole system would essentially break down. We would go from whatever level of human development we are now, and we would shift into the next one, which would be like a type 1 civilization, where what you talked about, non-aggression principle, where there is literally, like, everyone would be serving God. So you would not see sin. You would not see, it would be, no one would be taking advantage of you. They would be serving God. They wouldn't be trying to get one over on you, trying to gain material wealth. They would literally be in service to God. It would change the dynamic completely of how we exist as human beings.
And I appreciate that, and that's a beautiful sentiment. But you have to understand the subjective nature of a term like serving God. To the Muslims, serving God is infiltrating the Kafirs' society and assuming positions of power and taking over their country. To the Jews, to the more Talmudic, nefarious Jews, it's manipulating the Goyim and subverting their culture and assuming positions of power. That's how they serve their God. So it's a very subjective thing when you look at different religions and how different people serve their God. But my contention is the same results that we're both looking for can be achieved through rational philosophy, but it will never be taught by a government-funded institution, because they will never teach you that taxation is theft in an institution that's funded by the government. And so it's that fundamental contradiction. It's why they can't get to rock-solid philosophical principles in school. And it doesn't have to go to the level of assuming metaphysical beings in the sky and we're all going to serve. No, it's just these things are evil. Theft is evil, especially when you enforce theft upon a population and put them in jail for theft and then exempt yourself from the moral rule and say, oh, that's just and that's good for us to do, and that's what they teach you in the history books, coincidentally, in the public school, that, oh, history is just a series of disasters by the tax cattle, and the government swooped in to save everything, and they wrote a bill, and everything was all tied up and nice after that. And so my contention is a practical evaluation of the government system would be much more valuable than and spreading that basic philosophical idea to people. It would achieve all the same ends you're talking about. They would take their kids out of public school. They would not let them go in there to the indoctrination centers and get subverted. They would be much more choosy in their mates. They would have families and have women that wanted to stay home, and they weren't blue-haired feminist cunts, so they wanted to stay home and, teach your children and cook you dinner. So we're both going after the same things. I just feel like you're taking a metaphysical route to it, and with your talk about socialism and the Nazis and whatever, you seem to make justifications for the existence of government.
Yeah. Well, Nick, the thing about not having a government is that oftentimes another government will come in and take over if you don't have one. Like it's the justification of the military, where people don't want to spend money on the military, but what they don't realize is if you don't have the biggest, baddest gun, then someone else does. And so the thing about aggression in the nature of mankind and in the nature of the world we live in, aggression and conflict is something that is never going to go away. If you're hunting a pig, okay, you're going to kill the boar to feed your family. Well, the boar doesn't want to be killed, and you're going to run it down, and you're going to stab it and kill it, and you're going to feed your family. And so there's an innate conflict in the world where aggression and the sort of the way nature works, it doesn't allow for there to just be anarchy and no government and no protection, when someone else will just simply develop a government, develop a military, and they'll come in and they'll run over each individual because they have no collective power. They haven't collectivized into a power structure to protect themselves. So it's one of those things where, yeah, government is bad, but do you have the best bad government? And so I think in the United States, in a lot of ways, we lucked out, where we do have some devil-worshipping, crazy, evil guys running things. At the same time, in some way, there are evil guys. At least there are. So, they might go and smash another country, but at least they're not smashing. Well, they're not yet anyway. I think they have plans, but they're not smashing this one. So the thing about government, like the whole Hitler stuff, Nazi, socialism, I think in some ways socialism and Nazism was just the recognition of the final end of government, where, we all want to be anarchists and we all want to just have our own thing. But if we do that, the fucking communists are going to come through the door and they're going to rape our daughters. Okay? And so, that's what Nazism was. It was just a reaction to what was happening in Germany. They told them that men can be women, and they told them that, being a queer is good, and pedophilia is a sexual orientation. That's what they were doing in Germany in the early 1900s. And the Germans were finally like, fuck all this shit. We're going to elect this guy, and he's going to get you Jews out of here. And that's what happened, man. And Germany was clean for a decade. It was clean. People didn't have porno showing at the local movie theater. You know what I'm saying? It was actually cleaned up. And so I think what history has done, because the Nazis turned on the money structure, the money men of the West, England, and they were in France, the United States, the people that ran the money, the private money men, the Federal Reserve. Hitler was going up against the bankers, and he said, you're going to get out of my country, and you're not going to subvert our children anymore. You're not going to teach them to be communist, atheists, and you're going to get out of here. And so they broke free for about 12 years away from the slavery of the system that we are in. They didn't pay taxes to it. And then because of that, they are now demonized as the archetype of evil of all time. But you have to realize that your public school that's teaching you that is literally a group of pedivores, like Satanists. The the most evil people on the planet are pointing at Hitler saying, that's the bad guy. And so just the very nature of that fact, it has to make you look into, okay, well, why are they saying that this particular group of people is the archetype of evil? What is there that they would be saying that? Whenever Mao and Stalin killed as many as they killed, why is this guy the archetype? And so once you look into that, Nick, I think you will find that the history is literally written in an upside down fashion when it comes to Nazism. It's literally like Hitler was like, some pervert on meth who like hated Christians. Literally, it was like the exact opposite, bro. He was a Christian who hated pervert.
Well, I think I think he did have a lot of beta rage. All right, I think he was trying to bang Jewish chicks, and it didn't work out. All right, and it was a lot of resentment there. But my main, my main point is you seem to equate government with safety. And safety is a personal responsibility issue. You say, who's going to stop the communists from coming in and raping your daughter? Your shotgun. That's who's going to stop them, dude. It's called personal defense. It's called self-defense. You don't need a government to defend yourself. Look at the war in Afghanistan. We cannot win because all these individuals they're not collectivized. They blend in with the public. And they stay in their own domiciles and their goddamn caves. And they have rudimentary military technology, and we cannot win the war. It's because a populace of people that are individually armed and willing to resist a tyranny cannot be defeated. It's very difficult to defeat it, even with the top grade 21st century military technology. And you're saying that the Nazis, they aren't held to the same historical standard as Stalin or Mao, and that that they did make strides in cleaning up the smut, and they were trying to rid the society of that kind of sexual subversion that was destroying the culture. And while that may be true, they still amassed massive amounts of government power, and what did that end up in? Massive amounts of violence. Even among the useful idiots, they got taken out. The ones that were right along in the lockstep in the Nazi regime, but they weren't 100% pure, so they got taken out too. That's what happens when you give psychopaths like that political power. There's no justification for political power and putting a gun to somebody's head and taking their resources, regardless of the moral stand you have. And I feel the moral stand you have, that you don't want your culture to be subverted. You don't want, these type of ideas. But that's the strength of the family and the self-defense. You create your own family. You impart your own culture on your kids, and you are insulated from the larger culture. And the more individuals take responsibility to do that themselves, the less the people are going to get into power and get corrupted and want to subvert the culture at large, because those positions of power aren't going to exist. They're just going to be scrapping to survive themselves and provide value to the economy that's all that you legitimately have to provide in a free market. You can't manipulate and scheme and scam your way to the top like you can in politics, and convince people you're going to do one thing and then end up genociding all these people. It doesn't work out when you give individuals political power.
Well, Nick, I think you believe in the Holocaust, but I don't want to get into that. You're definitely right about the people in Afghanistan, that they live in the mountains, like not on the mountain or in the valley or whatever. They live inside the mountains. So yeah, getting rid of those people is not been easy. But I tell you what, brother, if they roll on you with tanks, or you got artillery rounds coming in, I tell you what, your shotgun ain't going to do shit. Okay, you can shoot a tank all day with your shotgun. They're just going to blow your house up. All right, so if the Chinese Red Army rolls on us with tanks, you're going to want the United States military bombing the shit out of them, I promise you. Because, you can protect yourself. Like if I try to come to your house, you could protect yourself from me. You could shoot me. But if I roll on you with a tank, Nick, I'm just going to shoot around in your front door and you're going to be done. You know,
well,
so
the thing
there's things about collectivized power where if you put things together, you can create a nation state like we have, where we're the top dog, man. Like we got the biggest gun in the world, and what that allows us to do is dictate to other people how they do business. That keeps us rich here.
One of the main reasons why you would go to war is to take over a tax base, right? You want to take over the tax base. You want to assume you want to at least put one of your friendlies in position of the regime, and you want to be able to dictate what happens to that tax base. You want to be able to profit from it. In the hypothetical scenario that there's a libertarian society that has a bunch of well-armed individuals, there is no incentive to go and try to take over that country, because you're going to bankrupt yourself trying to take over the country and going in and trying to take over a well-armed citizenry. It doesn't make sense. If there's an economically prosperous nation that doesn't have a government in their way and they're exploding with prosperity, the number one thing you want to do is trade with that society. You don't want to go over and try to take them over, especially the geographical location of America. We have two giant oceans to the east and west, two relatively friendly countries to the north and south. Nobody's invading America and taking it over. If we just reduce the size of the state, overflow with economic prosperity, nobody's going to have an incentive to be like, oh, we need to go take them out. Like any more than they do now. We have 700 military bases across the planet, and we get backlash from everybody. That's one of our main problems, going over there and stoking hornet's nest and creating resentment instead of just handling our own shit, becoming the inspiration for the rest of the world, and wanting and creating a desire to trade with us and be economic allies with us. We're not doing that because we're getting so spread out militarily. We're not building up our industry at home. We're outsourcing all of our industry because the companies here are so heavily taxed, and we're not producing anything that the world wants to buy anymore. And so if we get rid of all of that excess overhead, we bring the troops back, we build up our economy at home, we're going to start creating and innovating like the Industrial Revolution again, and everybody's going to want to be on our team. There's not going to be any incentive to invade us and take us over because there's no government to assume power in. Like, how are you going to come over here and institute a new government? Like, it would take so many goddamn resources. You would bankrupt your own country, and your own country would be getting flooded with migrants and debasing its currency, and they would be doing the same thing the American empire is doing right now, and they would collapse upon themselves. That's what the CIA trained the Mujahideen to do in the 1970s, to bankrupt a superpower, is lure them into wars they can't win and foreign entanglements. That's what George Washington warned against, dude. It's like, handle your own shit, and none of this lifeboat disaster scenario is going to come up where some country is like, oh, we've got to take it over and put it in a new government. They're going to see our economic flourishing and just be in awe.
Yeah, bro, you're right, man. I think what we're doing now with things like Iran, Venezuela, we're just trying to keep the petrodollar together. So, forcing everybody to trade with dollars for their oil is what our currency value is largely based on. So the value of your dollar, you can go down to the store and buy something with it right now. That's largely based on other countries being forced to trade in dollars for oil. So if they want to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, let's say, they have to go and get a bunch of U.S. dollars and then give that to Saudi Arabia to get the oil. And so that is the petrodollar structure, and that's what we're trying to maintain. If we do let that go, which people are breaking free, Russia, China, Iran, people, Venezuela's trying to. If they break free from that system, you might get to see the United States go from the dollar economy, the dollar existing, to the dollar falling completely to zero. And, when that happens, a lot of people say that everyone's going to die. I don't know if everyone's going to die, but I tell you what, man, it's going to be a dark day when you see the dollar, basically like the Weimar Republic, right? That it'll cost you $1,000 to buy a gallon of milk. It'll be crazy.
Well, on that day, I'm gonna, I'm going to hopefully have enough of my currency in Bitcoin, all right? And I'm going to give Nana a call, all right? And I'm going to go, hold up shop in the Compton, gangbanging compound, all right? I'm going to be down there in Compton hanging out with Kendrick Lamar, all right, with a bunch of, based individuals with a lot of goddamn guns, all right? Either that or, maybe Dave Kranick will donate his shotgun. All right, I don't know, but I do unfortunately see some kind of economic collapse on the horizon because we're continuing the same shit from 2008. There's all these new bubbles with the student loan thing, and the banks are doing the same shit they did with the mortgage crisis, and it's just like Trump's not doing anything significant to avoid it. Like, the only hope is to grow our way out of it. And to do that, we have to drastically limit the amount of government spending and drastically cut government. And he's cut taxes, but he hasn't cut government. And that's not an equation that works.
I don't know what we're going to do, bro. But like you say, LA, man, I can't imagine if things were to actually go down and you're in that city. They're going to start eating people, bro, and you just got, I don't know if you have enough shotgun shells to get out of that place.
I'm gonna have to be like Bradley Murray and strap on a goddamn eye patch and be like Snake Plissken, escaping from LA, dude.
Yeah.
I'll still be live streaming along the way, dude. I'm gonna bring a selfie stick. All right, we're gonna be taking down the zombie homeless people trying to eat me. All right, we're still going to be defending Western civilization.
Well, hopefully, Nick, things won't go bad, and we'll get that UBI flowing, and everyone will have money for rent and groceries, and things will get a lot better, bro.
I'm trying to earn my own version of UBI. All right, it's SBI, subjective basic income. All right, I'm trying to assume that manager job, dude. Get that free rent plus $1,000 on top. You got to earn it. All right, we can't give
What happens when there's automation, Nick? Automation, AI, and they've got some AI manager up there, and it's making all the decisions, and you're just out of a job now. What are you going to do when they take over everything? You're just going to be on the street?
There's no robot that can replace the Outrage Chancellor's drunken rants on YouTube. All right? They cannot program a robot to be this insane. I defy them to build a robot that tries to replace the Outrage Chancellor. All right? I'm going into the niche where it cannot be replaced by AI. All right, that's one thing AI will never be is funny.
That's true. As a comedian, I guess you might have a little niche there that can't really be grabbed up by the AI too good. That's good.
You're just trying to ransack the middle class for this goddamn UBI, dude, to finance the flat-nutted, Cheeto-fingered Xbox players, dude. What the fuck?
No, Nick, the middle class is taxed right now, and the welfare checks are given out right now. That's happening right now. What I'm saying is that the middle class would also get UBI. So if you're Joe out in, wherever, Oklahoma, and you're working and you make $40K a year, well, I'm going to tack on another $12,000 of that. So now Joe's making $52,000, and he can go on a vacation that year with his family or buy a jet ski or whatever. He can add to the economy. He'll pay taxes on those purchases, right?
Well,
and so it's a way of actually being fair to everybody instead of just the poor people.
You're looking at the benefits rather than the costs. What about the costs? What about the $1,000 you're taking away from the individual through taxes that could have been contributed to? That could have been withheld by the same individual that amassed their money already, and obviously they have enough money to be being taxed for this UBI thing, so they've contributed some value to the economy. I would trust their judgment with that $1,000 than the random flat nuts Xbox Cheeto finger motherfucker. They haven't proven their salt in the free market. They haven't earned that money. So I would trust the individual who earned that money to be able to spend that money more efficiently in the economy than somebody that than when a third party extracts it and gives it to somebody who didn't earn it.
Well, what if they spend it at the fourth wall to see Nick Jordan? What about that?
I would feel very dirty. All right, I would, I would probably be like the members of Congress getting stolen money. I would end up pulling my dick out on stage, dude, and I don't have a sexual assault slush fund. All right, so it would go very bad.
As far as paying for it, Nick, they do something recently. You talked about 2008 just a minute ago. They do something called quantitative easing. All right, it's got a nice name to it.
Yeah.
But what it basically means is they turn on the printing press. That's basically what it means.
Yeah, they add a zero in the account. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So UBI is basically the same thing. You're just going to turn on the printing press, right? Run up the debt. Except you're going to do it for the common man as opposed to the Wall Street insider who got all the money in 2008. You're just going to do it for the common man. So we say, how do you pay for it? Well, you just turn on the printing press. And I know that sounds like, oh, well, eventually something's going to blow up, It's like, yeah, it is going to blow up. You're right. And the thing is that it is going to blow up either now or later or 10 years from now. It's just... I guess it's more of a short-term thing, and then once it does blow up, we could have a different currency, right? If the U.S. dollar is gone, but we could run that freaking debt clock out. We could run it out for like 30 years, Nick, where you just,
I'm not trying to engage.
Eventually, it blows up.
I'm not trying to engage in the same behavior as these small hat criminals. All right, fuck that. We're not lowering ourselves to that activity. What we need is economic growth. What we need is small businesses and entrepreneurs to build their shit and innovate and create. And what's going to facilitate that process, I think, is letting individuals who earn money in the free market legitimately keep their money, because they're the individuals that make the right decisions in order to make money and provide value to the economy. So if we let them keep their money, then we all benefit. We all have iPhones in our pocket because rich-ass individuals bought the first prototypes of the iPhone for fucking, $20,000 a piece. You need individuals to be able to put their money into research and development for the new, hot, cool shit that's eventually going to be affordable for the masses. You know what I'm saying? Like, keep the money in the hands of the individuals who know how to spend their money.
Oh, yeah, Nick, I can't argue with you, man. I mean, that's right. It's just, this is a slave ship. I mean, this is about slavery. You're going to be taxed. I mean, they're going to tax you. They're going to tax you every time you buy something. You don't even own your property, bro. I bought a house. I don't even own it. I got to pay property tax every year. If I don't pay that property tax, they'll come and take me out of here, man.
Oh, yeah.
And so the tax is going to be there. What I'm just talking about, there's a lot of people suffering. There's a lot of people on the edge, a lot of homeless. There's a lot of people real close to homeless. And what I'm thinking is that UBI would allow us to, like you say, an entrepreneurial person, if you develop a business, let's say you make this or you have a service or whatever, if your neighbor has an extra grand in their pocket, your neighbor, they can hire you to perform that. Let's say you're a tree cutter. They have the money now to hire you to cut their trees. And so what you get as far as economy is value creation. It really has nothing to do with money. The economy is that the trees are now cut. That's the economy. The money is what allows that to take place in terms of the velocity of money, meaning that the guy on the ground, your neighbor, he has more money, so he can then hire you. If these Wall Street guys, these big corporate guys, these billionaires and millionaires, if they have more money, well, they're only like a few people. They can only hire so many services. They can only push into the economy so much value. So it's really about distributing that down to the common worker where they have excess income and they can hire the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And that's how we get increase in value creation. So it's about shoving money down to the lower part and then causing a money velocity scenario where money is flowing quicker. Now, there are risks of inflation, but pricing and inflation and things like that are very complicated, meaning that just because you raise McDonald's employee salary $15 an hour, it doesn't mean McDonald's can raise their prices to, let's say, Applebee's prices. Because Applebee's is a different part of the market than McDonald's. If McDonald's is the same price, you're going to go to Applebee's instead.
Yeah. So
the thing is that market position that McDonald's has, they can't really raise their prices in a developed market because they would destroy their share of it. That their share is right down there at the bottom in those low price, low quality food. So the whole pricing thing and the whole inflation, yeah, there will be some inflation, but it will be it's not going to be like, prices can't just be pushed up. People think that prices just go up based on cost. No. What's going to happen is that if you raise the wages of a McDonald's worker to $15 an hour, what's actually taking place is you're pushing value down to the lower parts of our society, the low-income people. You're pushing the value down there instead of pulling it up to the owners. So normally the owners would collect that value from that they're paying the $15 hour wage person now. Normally the owners would collect that value and they would become, multi-billionaires instead of just a $1 billionaire. They'd be a multi-billionaire.
No, I see what you're saying.
Reverse that and try to push it down, and that's what raising wages and stuff like that is like. It does sound socialist, it does sound communist, but instead of the owners getting all the value, you're just going to push it back down to the employees. That's all it really is.
I see what you're saying, and we have the same goals to be able to spread that wealth around. But my contention is it has to be voluntary. And the implementation of a minimum wage, what it does in practical reality is it just cuts down the size of the workforce that's getting implemented. They either hire less employees or they raise their prices when you have to pay your employees more. And so I don't think having a government mandate to pay an employee a certain amount is the way to go. I think getting the government impediment out of the way is the way to get that money flowing away from the corrupt-ass Wall Street millionaires and billionaires you're talking about. Because if they can't make deals with the government, then those big banks would have failed under Obama during the 2008 crisis. They would have failed, and legitimate competitors would have assumed their place with better business practices. Instead, when we have a big government like this, and they have the corruption at the top, they get to continue to exist and continue to do the same thing, and the middle class and the lower class gets fucked over. But if you legitimately want to spread the wealth down to the lower class and have people being employed, it's not about putting a minimum wage. There's that. It's the seen versus the seen benefits versus the unseen costs. You're seeing a raise in the wages of the individuals that are working at those places, but you're not seeing the people that aren't getting hired because their position doesn't provide that amount of value for the employer. And the employer should be making a lot more money than the employees because he's taking all the risk for the success or the failure of the business. And so the employee, if they get fired, the business doesn't go out of business and they don't have any personal liability for the thing. They just have to go get another job. But if the business fails, all the money that the employer has put into the business goes down the toilet and they have to start from, less than zero. And so they're taking all the risk. They deserve a lot more money than the employees. It's not about getting in there and manipulating things from a government perspective. All that ends up is a higher cost for the consumer and less quality service because they're hiring less people. You're not going to have more inflow and turnover into the employee force. And the chicken Alfredo that you're buying at the Olive Garden is going to be, $5 more because they have to pay their employees more and they have to give them all these benefits and everything that the government mandates. And so I don't think that's the way to take care of the dispossessed, is to have the government step in and give these criminals all this power to be able to come in and manipulate the economy. Instead, I think we need a separation of state and economics. And we let the businesses succeed or fail on their own merit and don't have the government involved in it at all. And I think that's the way that you let legitimate companies succeed and you let the corrupt, evil companies fail on their own merits. And there's a natural turnover in capitalism and people will be able to get jobs. There will be a lot more competition able to flourish when there's not all these regulations and government intervention into the economy.
Hell yeah, man. I can't argue with that. Nick, we could talk about this shit all day, man. It'd be cool to drive out to LA, have dinner, hang out. I think that'd be real fun, man.
Whereabouts are you at?
I'm way out here in the Midwest, man. So it'd be a long drive, but Hey, I wanted to give a shout out to Kiki in the chat, and I hope that her diet and everything is going well. And really, it's a mental thing, and you just have to be consistent, and eventually you'll develop good patterns, and you'll get all that weight off if that's your goal.
You were asking how fat she was in the chat. Kiki, we hope you're not overweight. All right, if there's an issue, all right, just consult the Outrage Chancellor's diet advice. All right, just work out before your carbohydrates. Everything will be fine.
I'm really concerned about her health. It's not really an aesthetic thing for me. I'm past that. I just wanted to be healthy and happy and that sort of thing and live a long, happy life.
Well, that's very benevolent of you, Robert Rydell. This has been a very enjoyable chat. All right, and you're welcome back on the Outrage Cast anytime, dude. I'll see you in the chat room there.
All right, Nicholas. You have a good night, man. I'll see you.
All right, buddy.
Bye.